Part 24. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 235. The boy originally thought that this child would never dare to come to this small park again after being teased and bullied by others. Unexpectedly, the little boy came again the next day, alone. Moreover, he still came to find himself. "Brother, thank you." The little boy raised his head and thanked softly. The loss and sadness of yesterday could no longer be seen on his face. The young man was slightly startled. "Is this a reaction? Go away, don't bother me." The boy turned over slightly, his tone harsh. When the little boy under the tree heard this, his little face as white and tender as a soft bun wrinkled up. After thinking for a while, he put the things in his hands under the big tree. "Brother, this is a thank you gift. Thank you for helping me." After the little boy finished speaking, he turned around and left the place. However, he did not see any sign of the boy turning around. He could only hang down in despair. The head is gone. When there was absolutely no movement below, the young man turned his head and looked down. There is a children's lunch box on the grass next to the big tree. "What the hell?" The young man sneered and closed his eyes again. 5 minutes later, the boy jumped down from the tree, picked up the lunch box, and opened it. There are neatly arranged exquisite pastries inside, which are fragrant and very tempting to look at. "Tisk. Elder brother." The crisp milky sound sounded again in the small park. The little boy carried a children's lunch box and walked briskly to the small park. He stopped under a large and lush tree, turned around and looked around. "Brother." At this time, there was a response from the tree. The little boy raised his head, and when he saw clearly the boy sitting on the tree, a smile appeared on his face. "Brother." The little boy took a few steps back and watched the boy jump down from the tree, then trotted over, stood on tiptoe, and held the lunch box in front of the ladder. "Brother, here you go." The boy took it and sat casually on the grass. "Brother, today's meal is." The little boy sat next to the boy and excitedly talked about what food was in the lunch box. While eating the pastry, the boy asked, "What other stories do you want to hear today?" The little boy hugged his knees with his hands and said obediently, "Brother, you eat first, and then tell me a story after you finish." "Okay," the young man responded, and then he began to count silently in his mind. Before even counting to 10, the little boy couldn't sit still and couldn't help but ask, "Brother, where is your home?" The young man paused for a moment, then continued eating. This is the third time this child has asked him. After each time, the child turns around and forgets, and continues to ask again. "Elder brother." The young man looked calm and answered for the fourth time, "No home." "Ah. Why not?" The little boy blinked in confusion. "I don't have parents, so naturally I don't have a home," the boy continued to answer. "Huh? I seem to be like my brother. My parents are divorced." The nanny said, "My parents are divorced. I just don't have parents anymore. However, I still have my grandfather." The young man raised his head slightly and glanced at the little boy. This was the first time the little boy had told him these things. "But Grandpa didn't let me play. He said he wanted to study hard and inherit the family business in the future." The little boy lowered his head, his mouth was slightly depressed, and his voice was muffled. Isn't it nice to inherit the family business? The young man could feel that the child's family was well off and he was in a completely different class than himself. The little boy shook his head. "I don't like it. It feels so troublesome. I want to be a warrior. Be a hero." Hearing this, the young man looked at the tiny little boy and chuckled, "Little dwarf, you still want to be a warrior? I will grow taller. When I grow taller, I can become a warrior," the little boy retorted firmly with a puffed up face. "Oh." The young man responded perfunctorily. "Brother, don't you believe me?" "Okay, I believe you." Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 236. Another day. In a small park. Brother, it's my birthday in 3 days. Can you come to my house and celebrate my birthday with me? The little boy's two little hands were clasped in front of him. His face was a little uneasy, but his eyes unconsciously showed a light of expectation. The young man thought for a moment and nodded, yes. Brother, don't lie to others, you must come. After hearing the desired result, the little boy jumped up from the grass in surprise. Okay, the young man agreed, thinking that birthdays seemed to require birthday gifts, so he asked, what birthday gift do you want? As soon as he asked the question, the young man felt a little embarrassed. When he came out, he didn't have much money with him. If it was an expensive birthday gift, he might not be able to afford it. The little boy blinked and asked in surprise, brother, can you give me a birthday gift? The little boy lowered his head and hesitated for a while before hesitatingly said, I want a red panda, just round, very soft. Listening to the description of the child in front of him, the young man looked slightly stunned and couldn't help but think of the situation when he first met the child. At that time, the dolls in the children's hands were snatched and destroyed by those unruly and vicious little devils. After the little boy finished speaking, his face turned slightly red. He lowered his head, a little scared, afraid that his brother would laugh at him for liking dolls. Future national warrior, do you like dolls? The young man's voice seemed calm, but it was filled with a hint of ridicule. Confusion appeared in the little boy's eyes. No. Can't you? The young man reached out and gently stroked the little boy's head. Okay, he could still afford a red panda doll. The next second, the little boy suddenly rushed over, hugged the young man, and rubbed him excitedly in the latter's arms. The young man stiffened and looked down at the excited little boy. He pursed his lips and smiled silently. It's soft and soft, like a red panda. No wonder I like red pandas. Brother, you must remember to give me the red panda, don't lie to me. The little boy raised his little face, his eyes full of expectation. Do not lie to you. Nala go. The young man pushed the person away. No, it's childish. Brother, come on. The little boy continued to come closer and stretched out his little finger in front of the boy with a hopeful look in his eyes. How old are you? Still so childish. The young man looked disgusted, but he still held out his little finger honestly. Seeing this, the little boy laughed happily. Pull go. You are not allowed to lie. The night is hazy and the shadows of the trees are dancing. Two figures, one large and one small, ran on the rugged mountain road. At this time, an abandoned warehouse somewhere on the mountainside suddenly became brightly lit, followed by some abusive noises. Those two little bastards ran away. Copycat guy? Go chase. In the mountains, somewhere. Be good, stay here, don't make a sound, don't come out. The boy stuffed the little boy into a small hidden cave and warned him while breathing slightly. The little boy lay on the ground obediently, raised his eyes, and stared at the young man. Brother, where are you going? Brother, I'm afraid. The young man touched the little boy's head and said, Brother, go and distract the bad guys. Don't be afraid. It will be fine. This cave is hidden, but those people, if they are ruthless and carry out a blanket search, they will be discovered sooner or later. We can no longer burden the children. Brother, will you come back? I want the red panda that my brother gave me. The little boy hooked his fingers on the corner of the boy's clothes and asked with red eyes. Yes, brother will definitely come back to you, the young man promised. At last, his figure disappeared into the vast night. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 237. Master. Gucci felt someone calling him from beside him, and gradually frowned. After 2 seconds, he slowly opened his eyes. When he saw it was Chibubi, the violence in his eyes dissipated a bit, but his expression was still very bad. He asked in a cold tone, "What's the matter?" Chibubi knew that Gucci had finally fallen asleep and that there was no urgent matter, so he would not disturb the latter. "Ken. Master, the people in the basement are awake," Chibubi whispered. Gucci's eyes seemed to freeze into ice instantly, uncontrollable violence filled his eyes, and his face was cold. He stood up, passed Chibubi, and walked out. Seeing this, Chibubi followed closely behind. In the basement, Gucci grabbed a chair, placed it firmly on the ground, and sat down. On the cross in front of him, a man was wrapped in iron chains. The man's upper body was naked, with large and small wounds all over his body, some of which were even rotten into the bones. He only wore a pair of tattered shorts on his lower body, which only covered his important parts. In addition, some colorful instrument cords were attached to the man's body, and the other end was connected to several operating instruments. Chibubi stood next to the machine and stared at the data on the display screen. Ahem. The man on the cross suddenly coughed a few times. He raised his head slightly, and his entire face was exposed from his untrimmed long hair. It was the face of a man who was several dozen years old, with fierce and rough features, but now he showed a sense of weakness that was caused by serious injury. Ahem, you're here again. When the man saw Gucci, his expression paused for a moment, and then he spoke to himself. What else do you want to ask? Haven't I said everything that can be said? After all these years, you don't still care about that child, do you? I didn't expect that the person in charge of the Gu family would actually be a kind and good man. The man talked a lot, and Gucci listened expressionlessly. Let me ask you one last time, have you seen him back then? Gucci raised his eyes and looked at the man in front of him coldly. Suddenly, the man raised his head and laughed. The people in power of the Gu family don't need emotions in their hearts, only interests. They don't need colors in their eyes, only black and white. Guju, you won't forget, right? The man stared at Gucci, thinking of what he could see on the latter's face. When the man's eyes fell on the sunglasses Gucci was wearing, he suddenly twitched the corner of his mouth and tugged on the wound next to him, but he didn't care and said word by word, I believe you will always be there, I will never forget it, ha 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 ha. You will always be a monster. Ha 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 ha. Goose people are all monsters. You are no exception. Gucci's eyes became colder as he listened. At this time, the man changed his tone. The same answer, how many more times do you want to ask? I have already said that the child was captured from the cave and begged for mercy, calling for his brother to come and save him. Unfortunately, his brother could not save himself. Did not come to save him at all. Later, I thought the child was too noisy, so I threw him off the cliff. It seemed that after a few seconds, the sound of landing was heard, tisk tisk. Are you still looking for him? Stop looking. Everyone is dead. He is dead. Ha 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 ha. Gucci suddenly stood up, grabbed the chair with his backhand, and threw it at the man. Boom. The man tied to the cross had no way to dodge and took it hard. The wooden chair shattered and disintegrated, and the flying wood thorns pierced the man's flesh, making him grimace in pain. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 238. After Sutingyu and the other three finished their meal, they discussed what to do next. Boss, how about we take Brother Chin out for a walk and buy some clothes and daily necessities for Brother Chin, the fat man suggested. Sutingyu blinked, yes. When Sutingyu came to Kyoto, she didn't expect to stay for so long, so she didn't prepare any clothes in advance. However, she later asked her agent, Sister Fei, to send her a box of clothes, which she had enough for. but she hasn't prepared decent clothes for Chin-Chi yet. In the hospital before, Chin-Chi was wearing hospital uniforms. Later, after being discharged from the hospital, Fatty brought his own clothes for Chin-Chi to wear. A fat man is a fat man, so when he wears it on Chin-Chi, the size will be billions of dollars too big. Chin-Chi, do you want to go out for a walk? Sotingyu turned to ask Chin-Chi. Chin-Chi nodded, well, get out. Then let me prepare first, plan the route, see where we are going, and buy clothes for brother Chin, the fat man said, and went to check the map on his mobile phone with great interest. Chin-Chi stared at the fat man's leaving figure, then turned his head and looked at Sotingyu. You lied. Sotingyu, What the hell? When did I lie to others? When did I lie to you? Sotingyu reached out dissatisfiedly and pinched the soft flesh on Chin-Chi's face. Chin-Chi twisted his head and broke away from Sotingyu's hand. He lowered his head, looked at the red panda and said, other than Chi-Chi, I will never tell anyone else, okay? After finishing speaking, Chin-Chi raised his head and looked at Sotingyu, wanting to hear the latter's explanation. For it. I lost it? This kind of deception to kid 7, wouldn't anyone still believe it? Okay, Chin-Chi believed it himself and even thought about it. Sotingyu's face was a bit dumbfounded. You just realized it now? But then again, didn't you also agree with what I told the fat man with your eyes? Chin-Chi lowered his head again, staring at the red panda. Sotingyu blinked his big eyes. Why do I feel that if Chin-Chi's hand wasn't injured, he would still want to abuse the red panda? Illusion, it must be an illusion. Ahem, Kikai, please forgive me once, okay. Sotingyu squatted down, resting his chin on the armrest of the wheelchair, looking at Chin-Chi eagerly. Chin-Chi felt slightly uncomfortable and muttered in a low voice, then don't lie to others anymore. Okay, okay. I promise. I will never lie to Kikai in the future, Sotingyu responded with a smile, but felt greatly relieved. Boss, brother Chin, the route is sorted out, let's go out. Okay. After going out, Fatty was still driving in front, while Sotingyu stayed in the back with Chin-Chi. Along the way, Chin-Chi stared at the rapidly passing scenery outside the car window, unblinking, as if he liked looking outside. Seeing this, Sotingyu came over and said, Kikai, do you like to go out and play? Yeah, Chin-Chi nodded. Chin-Chi had turned off the panel at this time, and his consciousness was in chaos. Just before going out, Sotingyu and the other two spent a lot of effort to make Chin-Chi slowly remember the two of them. Sotingyu touched Chin-Chi's head, then let's go out to play more often in the future, okay? Okay. Chin-Chi looked at it for a while and got tired. He rested his head on Sotingyu's shoulder, but kept looking out the car window. At this moment, a thought flashed through my vague mind. He really came out. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 239. In the basement. Gucci clapped his hands and said calmly, well done. Hearing this, the man looked stunned. He's not dead, man. In fact, I've found him. Gucci turned his head and glanced at him, who was surprised. On your side, I heard that there is an illegitimate child raised in the mountains. The man stared blankly, veins popping out. What do you want to do? I didn't want to do anything. Gucci spread his hands and raised a nasty curve at the corner of his mouth. I heard that your illegitimate son caused trouble everywhere and harmed many girls from good families. As for me, I will help him change his ways and chop him into pieces. Lose your evil roots. Gucci. You bastard. You have to die. I am going to kill you. Glancing out of the corner of his eye, he saw Chibubi making a gesture. Seeing this, when Gucci looked at the man again, he had lost interest in his eyes. Don't worry, you're only seedling. Oh, no, it shouldn't be counted as a single seedling. he will live well. Life is worse than death. He is confused. Alive. As for you, get ready. It's time to hit the road. Your master has been waiting for you for a long time. After saying that, Gucci turned and left. The man behind him kept cursing. Gucci. You are not human. You are a scourge. A scourge. A bastard. That little brat is dead a long time ago. You're still trying to find me, you'll never find him again in your life, ha ha ha. You whine. Chibubi looked coldly, stuffed a rag into the man's mouth, and blocked the latter's mouth. After finishing, Chibubi also left the basement. Gucci stood outside the door and watched the basement door being closed by Chibubi. What's the result this time? Gucci asked. Chibubi replied, Master, it's still the same as before, half truth and half lie. It may be true that he fell off the cliff, but when it comes to shouting for help, it is false. In addition, the cave is also false. The instrument connected to the lines on the man's body is some kind of sophisticated lie detector. In the past few years, whenever the man is awake, he will use this method to test whether what he says is true or false. But, Master, one thing is that this person really doesn't know where the child went. Chibubi came up with a good or bad inference. After the two of them came out of the basement, Chibubi's cell phone rang. After looking at the number, Chibubi turned to Gucci and said, Sir, it's a call from someone from Observation Fennanbe. Gucci, take it. With permission, Chibubi answered the phone and turned on the speakerphone. Assistant Chi, Fennanbe has gone out, and there are two other people, a man and a woman. Chibubi glanced at Gucci, but the latter didn't respond, so he said, Do you know where they went? According to the direction, it should be heading to Zhongxing Commercial Street. We are following behind. No need to disturb them, just keep following. Okay, Assistant Kite. Call ended. Chibubi looked at Gucci, Sir, the location of the small park you mentioned is located in several villa areas nearby. There is a high possibility that Chin Kishio has lived there and is of the same age. Do you want to directly go and ask? Age. Gucci frowned, suddenly thought of something, and asked, Who has a birthday on July 7th on the list? Chibubi was slightly startled. This is a new clue proposed by Gucci. Let me take a look. Chibubi also has all the information on the list on his phone and can check it on the spot. July 7th. After checking the birthdays of all the people on the list, Chibubi turned to Gucci and said, 7th young master's birthday is July 7th. Prepare the car and go to Zhongxing. Yes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 240. Kikai, we're here. Chin-Chi looked at the scenery outside the car window without moving, and blinked slightly. Then he came back to his senses when he heard Sutingyu's words. I've reached a certain place, so I'm not moving. The fat man took out the wheelchair, and Sutingyu took him out of the car and gently put him on the wheelchair. Just as the fat man was about to close the car door, Chin-Chi suddenly spoke up and turned to look at the car. Red Panda. Yes, yes, there is Kikai's little panda. Sutingyu turned around and went back to the car, took out the little panda, and put it in Chin-Chi's arms for him to hold. Brother Chin, please wear another mask. The fat man took out a clean mask and helped Chin-Chi put it on his face. Why do you need to wear a mask? Sutingyu was confused. The fat man chuckled, there are too many people. When a person in a wheelchair appears in public, it is inevitable that he will attract a lot of attention. And fat people also have a deep understanding of this because of their overly rich body shapes. Now Fatty is used to it, but the careful Fatty was worried that Chin-Chi wouldn't be able to adapt, So he came out with a mask. Oh. Sutingyu blinked and realized it later. Kikai, do you feel uncomfortable wearing the mask? Qin-Chi shook his head. Fortunately, not boring. Let's go. Sutingyu pushed the wheelchair behind, while Fatty led the way. The two of them looked at the clothes first. When they came to the men's clothing store, Sutingyu accompanied Qin-Chi, while the fat man went to pick out clothes for Qin-Chi. Qin-Chi couldn't try them on the spot, but Fatty could tell clearly what size of clothes Qin-Chi needed after just a few glances, so there was no pressure in choosing. From time to time, Sutingyu looked at the clothes that the fat man brought and talked about the colors of the clothes with interest. On the contrary, it was Qin-Chi, holding the little panda in his arms, occasionally in a daze. Seeing that Qin-Chi was not interested, Fatty accelerated his selection of clothes. Half an hour later, the fat man finished picking out all the clothes, swiped his card and left. They said they were taking Qin-Chi out to play, but they both took Qin-Chi to a place where there were not many people. After buying clothes, he went to help Qin-Chi buy some daily necessities. The fat man suggested, let's walk around again. There are actually all kinds of delicious food in the commercial street, but the three of them have just finished eating and don't have much appetite now. Suck it smells so good. Sutingyu smelled the aroma of various snacks, but his stomach obviously didn't respond. Not hungry. The fat man bought 2 barrels of barbecue and came back. He smiled at the two of them, then eat some, don't eat too much, you won't be able to hold up. Ouch. Sutingyu pushed the wheelchair with one hand, still pushing it steadily. Then with one hand free, he picked up a barbecue stick and started eating it happily. Qin-Chi turned his head and stared at Sutingyu. After Sutingyu finished eating a piece of barbecue, he looked at Qin-Chi. For it. Do you want Chi-Chi to eat too? Sutingyu took out a new barbecue stick and waved it in front of Qin-Chi's eyes. Yes, yes. Qin-Chi nodded. Let's find a milk tea shop or coffee shop, sit down and eat slowly. The fat man held 2 barrels of barbecue and couldn't spare any time to eat. He was also greedy. Then, let's choose this one. Sutingyu turned around and looked around, and settled on a coffee shop with a more elegant interior decoration. This one is fine. Compared to popular milk tea shops, coffee shops have relatively less traffic. And through the glass door, you can see that there are still many empty seats in the cafe. Just in time, you can take a rest. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 241. At this time, in the coffee shop, a young and beautiful woman in a yellow dress, with a charming smile on her face, recommended to the rather strong woman opposite. Ms. Yang, I know that a new medicated food restaurant has recently opened nearby. I heard that the medicated food in it can't be tasted at all, and some of the medicated food have miraculous effects on beauty and beauty. When she heard the next sentence, a trace of interest appeared on Miss Yang's face. Shwe, I don't want to go to some herbal restaurant. At this time, a handsome man with most of his body next to Miss Yang pinched his throat and deliberately acted coquettishly. Normally, women would obey him, but when it comes to beauty, women can ignore almost anything. If you don't want to, then get out. Miss Yang's sudden change of expression frightened the man next to her. The man cowered in his position in fear, not daring to make any further demands. When the woman in the yellow dress opposite saw this scene, a trace of disgust flashed in her eyes, and then she still smiled. Miss Yang, we will wait. Welcome. An electronic female voice sounded at the door. Sutingyu and the other 3 entered the coffee shop. Fat man, find a seat. Let me see, why don't you sit there? At this time, the woman in the yellow dress noticed that Miss Yang's eyes were unconsciously drifting towards the door opposite her. She suddenly became suspicious and turned her head to look. Among the 3 people who entered the door, Qin-Chi, who was sitting in a wheelchair, was particularly conspicuous. His handsome and delicate face exuded an indescribable purity and purity. His eyes were slightly confused and curious as he looked around quietly. He held a cute little panda doll in his arms. He looked just like its owner. Soft and harmless. The woman in the yellow skirt was a little stunned, but she quickly thought of something and suddenly realized. Looking at Qin again, there was some hidden sympathy in his eyes. "Miss Yang, can I help you check the young master's information?" The woman in the yellow skirt pointed vaguely in Qin's direction. There was a hint of determination in Miss Yang's eyes, and she felt even more joyful when she heard the title given to Qin by the woman in the yellow skirt. Everyone in the circle knows that the eldest daughter of the Xiang family, Xiang Qiaoxiu, has some fancy hobbies. Although they are disdainful in their hearts, they are still polite on their faces. The Xiang family has great power and has become a new rich man in Kyoto a few decades ago. In recent years, it has even had the potential to suppress the Qin family, the established powerful family. Whenever Xiang Qiaoxiu likes someone, or is dating a young boyfriend, people in the circle will tacitly call her Gongzi to please Xiang Qiaoxiu. "No, I know him." Xiang Qiaoxiu refused the woman in the yellow dress's proposal. The woman in the yellow skirt looked shocked when she heard this. Could it be some young master in the circle? But I have never heard of any young master with disabled legs and needing to use a wheelchair. A month ago, Xiang Qiaoxiu would have had no impression of Sutingyu and the others. Sutingyu's identity is a state secret, and the photos cannot be leaked. Fatty is a low-key person, often works part-time, and rarely shows off his financial resources in front of outsiders. Qin served in the special forces a few years ago, and his personal information was classified as confidential. Later, when he returned to the Qin family, he disappeared from the public. Unfortunately, a few days ago, the Xiang family and the Qin family had privately confirmed their marriage, and Xiang Qiaoxiu had even seen photos of her marriage partner. Now, she happened to recognize Qin. "He will soon be my precious fiancé." Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 242. "Auntie, someone is following you." As soon as Sutingyu sat down, her phone vibrated. She picked it up casually and looked at the WeChat message that jumped on the screen. Her eyes instantly darkened. Sutingyu typed a reply, "What's going on?" Click send and wait a few seconds before the text message comes again. "From the moment you left the community, there were 2 cars following you. Occasionally, one car overtook you. After turning a few corners, it followed you again, and then another car did the same thing. The people who got off the car are hiding in several nearby shops. One of them entered the cafe you are in beforehand." When Sutingyu saw this, he subconsciously searched the store for suspicious persons. Table number 8, Area C. When the phone vibrated, another message came in. Sutingyu glanced at it, then turned his head and glanced at Table 8 in Area C with his peripheral vision. There was a man in his early 20s or 30s sitting there, who only ordered a cup of coffee. No trace of drinking. After being pointed out like this, Sutingyu really felt that the man had looked in their direction no less than 4 times in less than a minute. Tisk. What's the situation? Sutingyu began to have various conjectures in his mind. Is it for her? It's not like it hasn't happened before. Or is it something in the game? Have the identities of the 3 of them been exposed? Sutingyu continued typing and sent, "Why are you saying it now? Auntie, we can't be so neurotic that we bother you at every little thing, right? Currently, these people have not taken any action, but their intentions are unclear." Sutingyu moved her fingertips slightly, and just as she was typing a few words, she caught a glimpse of the man leaving his seat, seemingly going to the restroom of the cafe. As soon as she thought about it, Sutingyu stood up and said to the 2 of them, "I'm going to the bathroom. Fatty, take care of Kikai." "Oh, okay, okay," the fat man nodded. Sutingyu rubbed Qin's head. The latter was startled for a moment, and then responded with a cute smile. Sutingyu left his position and walked towards the bathroom inside. Qin-Chi watched Sutingyu walk away and disappear around the corner, then turned his head. "Brother Qin, look at the menu. What do you want to drink?" The fat man put the menu in front of Qin-Chi. Qin-Chi blinked and his eyes fell on the 2 barrels of barbecue. He said softly, "I want to eat this." "Ah. Oh, let's eat barbecue, right? Come on." The fat man took out a barbecue stick and put it to Qin-Chi's mouth. The latter could eat it by stretching his head. After finishing one, Qin-Chi licked his lips and winked at the fat man. "You eat too, quietly, and eat more before the big fish comes back." The fat man was stunned for a moment. "Brother Qin, you..." He knew that Brother Qin's personality might be different from that in the game, but he didn't expect that he could be so cute. Okay, let's eat quietly, haha." The fat man smiled and took one for himself to barbecue, and also gave Qin-Chi one. After the fat man finished eating one root, he took out his mobile phone, scanned the QR code on the menu, ordered 3 coffees, and paid for the order. At this time, Xiangqiaoxiu stood up and walked out of the cafe, followed closely by the woman in the yellow dress and her little boyfriend. Less than 10 seconds later, 4 men in black suits and sunglasses broke into the coffee shop. The leading man looked around and landed on Qin-Chi. Several people stepped forward. One person pushed away the fat man who was blocking the way, and the other person quickly pushed Qin-Chi away in the wheelchair. The fat man was pushed and stunned for a moment. When he saw Qin-Chi being taken away, he shouted, "What are you doing? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 243. Master. Okay, they are. Sutingyu followed the man to the door of the men's bathroom without going in. The sound insulation effect inside was still good. Sutingyu outside heard some intermittent sounds, but they were not very clear. He could only tell that the person inside was talking on the phone. It seems like he's the only one in there. After waiting for a while, the sound disappeared. Then the sound of footsteps gradually came. Sutingyu leaned against the wall next to the door, her eyes falling on the incandescent light shining on the floor directly in front of the door. 1 second. 2 seconds. When a figure fell on the floor, Sutingyu's eyes suddenly turned fierce, turned around and kicked out. Caught off guard, the man who had just come out was kicked in the abdomen and sent flying into the bathroom. Sutingyu walked in a few steps, clenched both hands into fists, and without saying a word, punched the man in the face. Who hit me? Ouch. The man was punched several times. When he finally saw Sutingyu's face clearly, his eyes widened and he shouted anxiously. Don't fight, our own people. Our own people. Sutingyu was a little confused when she heard the man's screams of pain, but she kicked her first and then asked, "Tell me, who are you? Why are you following us?" The man gritted his teeth in pain, but when he looked at Sutingyu, there was not a trace of resentment in his eyes, but instead shone with a certain kind of admiration. "Big brother. I didn't expect that your skills are so awesome in reality." Sutingyu didn't react for a moment. What is number 1 on the list? Hunting list, Boss Angel Su. The man stumbled to his feet. Sutingyu narrowed his eyes with a fierce look. Who are you? Oh, boss, you may not recognize me. I am Juyu subordinate and a member of Seeing. I also participated in the Children's Day copy, the man explained quickly. Hearing this, Sutingyu's eyebrows relaxed slightly, and he relaxed his vigilance a little. But did Gucci want you to follow us? The man suddenly became speechless. Boss, I'm just obeying orders, but I promise, We definitely don't have any bad intentions. Then the call you just made was to Gucci, Sotingyu asked. Yes, yes, the man nodded repeatedly. What do you want to do if you care about him? At this time, Sotingyu's and the man's cell phones rang at the same time. After the two looked at each other, they each took a step back and answered the call. What? The seventh young master was taken away. What? Kikai was taken away. At this time, Sotingyu didn't bother to ask any more questions, turned around and ran out of the bathroom. The man was stunned for half a second, and then quickly followed. After Sotingyu came out, he looked for where they were just now, and then saw the fat man lying on the ground, and the waiter next to him with a shocked look on his face. Sotingyu hurried over, helped the fat man up, and asked urgently, "Where is Kikai?" As he got closer, Sotingyu realized that the fat man's face was red and swollen with blood, and there was blood oozing from the corners of his mouth, as if he had been beaten. Qin-Chi, as well as the wheelchair, disappeared. Boss, a few men broke into the store and suddenly wanted to take Brother Qin away. I can't stop him. The fat man got a little excited, and the parts of his body that were hit started to hurt, but his eyes were filled with anxiety and deep self-blame. The boss had only left for a few minutes, and he didn't even take care of Brother Qin. Why is he so useless? It's okay, I'll chase you. Sotingyu suddenly felt a surge of anger in his heart, and his voice was slightly cold. After comforting the fat man, Sotingyu immediately turned around and left the cafe. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 244. A low-key black car drove into the underground parking lot. Master, Zhengxing Commercial Street is here. After the car stopped, Chibubi in the driver's seat turned to look at Gucci behind him. Gucci opened the car door and went out. Where is the person? The last news came from a coffee shop. Chibubi stepped out and locked the black car while responding to Gucci's words. Well, lead the way. Yes. Gucci and Chibubi walked towards the exit of the parking lot. At this time, 4 men entered the parking lot from outside the exit, looking hurried and a little anxious. Among them was a man pushing a wheelchair with someone sitting on it. Those people looked at themselves as they passed by and did not cast a single extra glance to notice the 2 insignificant strangers passing by. But Gucci's step slowly stopped. Just now, if I read correctly. Thinking of this, Gucci's eyes narrowed slightly and he turned around to look. Don't move. The man pushing the wheelchair stared at Qin-Chi in the wheelchair impatiently. Except for one hand pushing the wheelchair, the other hand pressed Qin-Chi's shoulder, trying not to let anyone move. Trouble. Qin-Chi was still holding the little panda tightly in his arms, and his eyes seemed to be covered with a thin layer of mist. His dull and confused brain slowly realized that he seemed to have been taken away by a stranger. There are no big fish here. The fat man is not here either. Where have they gone? No more Kikai. Qin-Chi tried to struggle, but he had no feeling in his lower body, and the injury on his wrist was not healed yet. It was limp and unable to exert any strength, so he could only remain restrained in the wheelchair. 4 men stopped in front of a car. Someone took out the car keys, unlocked the car, and opened the door. It's so troublesome. Knock them out first. No, the eldest lady has ordered not to hurt anyone. It's okay, I'm careful with my actions. At the same time, Chibubi also noticed the situation over there. After watching for a few seconds, he slowly recognized that the person in the wheelchair was Qin-Chi, with a hint of shock in his eyes. Sir, the person in the wheelchair over there seems to be. But before Chibubi finished speaking, Gucci beside him had already turned back. Chibubi was startled for a moment, and just as he was about to follow him, the screen of his cell phone lit up. A new WeChat message appears on the screen. Brother Chi, some of them injured Fen Nanbei and took Qin Kishio away. Chibubi's expression became serious. As soon as he raised his head, he saw. Bang! A man holding an iron rod wanted to knock Qin Chi unconscious. Without any precautions, he was punched to the ground by Gu Qi, who suddenly walked quickly. "Who are you? Mad? You don't want to live anymore, do you?" Seeing their companion being punched by Gu Qi, who appeared out of nowhere, the other three men were stunned at first, and then glared at Gu Qi. There was a man wielding an iron rod who wanted to attack Gu Qi. The iron rod came, and Gu turned his head to avoid it. A small, sharp dagger appeared between his fingers. With a movement of his wrist, it instantly pierced the man's right wrist. Ah! There was a scream, and the iron rod separated from the man's hand and fell to the ground. Just as the other two people were about to step forward, they were stopped by Chibubi, who was rushing over. Seeing Chibubi coming, Gu Qi ignored these people and turned his head to look at the people behind him. At this time, Qin Chi was sitting in a wheelchair, with his head lowered and his eyes staring blankly at the little panda in his arms, while the arms surrounding the little panda were trembling slightly. Gu Qi paused, then took 2 or 3 steps closer. He slowly leaned down and his eyes fell on Qin Chi's confused face. He thought for a moment, took off his gloves, raised his hand and gently touched the white gauze belt on Qin Chi's wrist, and said softly, "It's okay."